Welcome, everyone. I am Susie Bannon. I'm the Assistant Director of the Alliance for Higher Education in Prison, and I would like to welcome you all to the third community conversation of 2023. This is also the last of a three-part series on education in action with the Alliance Fellows, Leo Hilton and Victoria Scott. And I would like to introduce you to our Executive Director, Ved Price, who will be introducing today's event as well as Education in Action. Ved?
Yeah, thank you, Susie. And Leo, thank you for the opening music. That was a good way to kick off this call. I think that should be a standard now. It makes it easier for us to not like stare at each other awkwardly while people kind of roll into the room. So breaks that up a bit. Yeah, I'm super excited to be here today. I have not been able to attend the past two because I've been on the road, but trying to promote this work and build these opportunities for people. But I'm really excited to finally get to sit here in this in this room with everybody and talk about education in action. So for those who don't know, Education in Action is an initiative, an alliance initiative that's focused on creating high impact learning opportunities, work learning opportunities for incarcerated individuals in ways that haven't been done in the past, in the form of internships, fellowships, pre-apprenticeships, and anything to that sort, with the goal of hopefully creating job opportunities for incarcerated population, and not just slave wage labor, prison industry jobs that pay 60 cents an hour, but livable, good paying jobs where people can come home with money and also have some agency over their reentry, and also be able to send money home to their families and loved ones and contribute to their communities despite their circumstance. So yeah, I'm just excited to be here. I can just say a bit about where Education in Action came from. I worked here at the Alliance a few years back, and I had this idea that I always wanted to find out ways to employ incarcerated individuals. And I wasn't the director at the time, and so I couldn't just like call these shots. And I was like, how am I going to go convince a nonprofit or a business, an organization, or a corporation to give incarcerated individuals a job opportunity, a career opportunity? And I just was never able to really do it. Like, I talked to people and they're like, it sounds like a good idea, and I don't know, and this, that. And so once I came back as the director, I was like, I don't have to beg anybody to do this anymore. I don't have to ask anybody to do it. I don't have to try to convince or persuade somebody why it might be a good idea. I just did it. Right. And so hopefully as the national organization, we can kind of set the precedent and build a model for the rest of the US and outside of it to consider this population as one that is deserves and is worthy of job opportunities as well. And so, starting under the umbrella of education and what makes education quality is, there's enough research and data and evidence out there that shows the importance of internships and how they help people move into careers, and how they help people kind of discern their passions, discern their interest, and find the career pathway that's best for them. And so we've seen for the longest while in higher education in prison that that success has been measured by the delivery of curriculum, that somebody obtains a degree, a credential, completes a class, gets a credit as a measure of success. And I think that while that is a measure of success, there's so much more that can be done. And so really trying to put education into action, trying to find creative and innovative ways to create opportunities for people to apply their education during incarceration. And so I don't know how much of this was brought up in the past, but with COVID, we kind of saw this accelerated expansion of access to technology inside the carceral space in ways that have never happened before and that I could have never fathomed. And so people were reviewing policies, correction facilities were getting, broadband infrastructure, Wi-Fi, and all these things. And so now we're looking at how, you can bridge this gap between the inside and outside to make people's transition back home more seamless, and to also find ways for people to contribute and participate in their communities during incarceration. So I'm just really excited to see this stuff come to fruition. Maine has been a really good partner in this. I see Rebecca Villarreal from Jobs for Future here in this call, who's also been a really strong supporter and partner in kind of helping us operationalize this stuff, and has also taken on an intern who's currently incarcerated, and we're paying them, right? They're getting paid, and it's not, right now I think we're paying $25 an hour. And so it's something that we hope to kind of start now. It's kind of in its pilot phase, but we look to do this stuff nationally. A bulk of our energy in terms of fundraising is going to go into getting money to create these opportunities for individuals across the US. So I would say 80% of like our efforts in terms of fundraising is going to be towards what we can do to, re-grant money to people who are willing to host interns, re-grant money to people who are willing to allow internships to happen at their facilities, and all this sort of stuff. So that's, one of the biggest parts of our mission. I've had an opportunity with some students since I've been in this position, hearing that people are getting, all these credentials, all these degrees, but yet they still have 5 or 10 years left on their sentence, right? What if I get my bachelor's and master's and I still have 10 years left? Well, by the time I'm released, how valuable is that credential if I haven't had the opportunity to apply it, right? So I think it's valuable. I think it can be applied in ways that aren't necessarily workforce related, but also the opportunity to apply it in a workforce setting would add more value to that credential. So I can pause there. I'm just really excited to be a part of this conversation, and I'm glad the Alliance is, taking up the role of leading this along with a few others in the field. And we're really trying to do this for, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people across the US to have these opportunities to put their education into action. So.
Thanks, Ved. That was awesome. And just to recap, the first 2 sessions of this series, during our first event, we met our amazing Alliance fellows, Leo and Victoria, who shared with us the real-time impact of higher education in prison, as well as the importance of creating pathways for professional development for currently incarcerated people. During our second series event, we discussed the obstacles associated with pursuing a degree of higher education while incarcerated, as well as those associated with pursuing professional employment opportunities while incarcerated. And today we are going to have a bit of a visioning session, as Leo loves to call it, and I do too, about what the future of education and action can look like, and what steps folks can take to start working towards becoming a part of this movement that we are growing here at the Alliance. And so before we get started, I know that Ved wanted to thank a few folks who have contributed to making this initiative even possible. And then we'll get going with some of our questions.
Yes, I want to give the thanks. I don't know if I wish some of these folks were on the call, but if they're not, I would just want to give thanks so everybody knows who to credit for making these opportunities and taking, what some would consider risky decisions, and putting, and just having a risk appetite. Victoria used this term earlier, and the administrative courage was a term that was used. And I think it does take a lot of this, because people are, we hear how great, when things go great, you rarely hear about them, but if everybody is going to hear about it. So like taking that risk and putting your, job online or your image or whatever on the line to help people is really something that I'm thankful for. So I'm going to read off this list, because I can't remember everybody because so many people have contributed to this, but yeah, so I would thank Commissioner Randy Liberty out in Maine, Deputy Commissioner Anthony Cantillo, Director of Training and Education, Laura Rodas, who I've had a lot of conversations with, who's been a really great supporter. And I've rarely heard people who work on the correction side think as progressively and open-minded as she has. So just big shout out to Laura Rodas. Warden Matt Magnuson and Unit Manager Michelle McLaughlin. And the Mellon Foundation. Mellon Foundation has really got behind this movement early, and kind of aggressively pursued the Alliance and this mission and vision that we had for doing this, and wanted to really put some energy and resources behind making it a national thing. So I'm sure everybody who's worked in and around government systems and corrections know that things don't happen really fast. And so just embracing the realistic pace at which this stuff can happen and these opportunities take place, and understanding the process possible. So just thank you there.
Thanks, Ed. All right, so here we are at the end of this series on education in action, and we are turning towards the future. So Victoria, I would love for you to start us off by naming a couple of aspects of programming that you would like to see created in order to truly bridge the acquisition of knowledge and then that practical professional application of what you learned through your education experience.
Thank you, Susie. This is such a wonderful question, and it bears so much significance. Honestly, I would love to see the New England Board of Higher Education's Commission on the Future of Higher Education in Prisons report recommendations be supported within DOC spaces and partnered with employers to be able to really streamline the process of orientation to education programs and to professional settings to be able to apply those skills in work learning avenues. So I think plotting a pathway that's very mindful and organized and facilitated and streamlined is key. Really, these initiatives should begin upon intake to be able to give focus, support, and motivation to incarcerated people as they're walking through the doors, perhaps feeling disoriented and lost, but also to be able to share that purpose from the administrative perspective with residents and encouraging and fostering that potential. So this would involve partnering with caseworkers and with classification officials within the facility to include that as part of the intake and orientation process for residents to evaluate and assess what residents' capabilities and aptitudes are, where their interests lie, and to help really lead them towards a path that's going to be fulfilling, that plays to their strengths, but also has the ultimate goal of feeding into a fairly compensated professional employment vocation. So I think that that is, that's critical to success, is really starting out early and making sure that we're making the investment on that ground level. Beyond that, I would say that the technological infrastructure, as Ved mentioned in his introductory speech, is so important. Without the accessibility and without being able to have the connectivity that we enjoy so much post-pandemic, these programs really wouldn't be able to flourish and thrive as they have so far. So Zoom has opened a lot of windows and a lot of doors for incarcerated people who are not only striving for their best academic situation, but also to be able to connect to community and employment networks, to be able to find mentors and career advisors, and to be able to make the contacts that are necessary in order for them to be able to receive opportunities. So that is so important. HEP programs can do a lot to make these investments by having these conversations, not only with DOCs, but employers, and making sure that they're being inclusive when offering opportunities. So by designing internships, research positions, fellowships, and projects that are open to incarcerated people, and perhaps not pigeonholed or directly tokenizing that, but being able to welcome incarcerated students into these professionalized spaces where there is that diversity of perspective and where they can work shoulder to shoulder with other students and other professionals who are really aiming for the same goal, seems like something that could be very positive and supportive and encouraging for incarcerated students, but also for the partnerships that are attempting to solidify between these institutions and organizations. So clearly defined and organized channels for the pursuit of advanced degrees will also help professionals to hone their crafts. It's very difficult to find funding once Pell runs out, and that typically only covers bachelor's degrees. Beyond that, you can be a little bit on your own, and it can be very hard to find resources from the inside, especially ones that fund advanced degree programs, masters, and doctorates. And there are a lot of career opportunities down those avenues. So I think being able to organize and supply students with those resources that make them capable to attain their highest level could be revolutionary when it comes to creating professionals that are able to operate in advanced spaces. What do you think, Leo? What pathways would you like to see created?
So your mention of the lack of funding for advanced degrees just reminds me of how appreciative I am of everybody who stepped in and helped support me in funding my master's program. And I'm getting ready to start my PhD program this fall. And so big love to the Jimmy and Rosalind Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution under George Mason University, because they're funding me for my tuition for the next 4 years and making that possible. So just had to throw that out there real quick since we're thanking people. Gotta thank those people. But around what I want to see happen. First off, do all of that. Start the reentry journey as soon as somebody comes in, because as somebody who's looking forward to a future where there are no prisons, so long as we have prisons, let's actually use them for something good. Start this reentry journey from the beginning. But around and preparation for the professional application of that education, I would love to see more classes that center community building as an avenue of cultivating personal agency and collective empowerment, right? Because what do we want for our kids when they go to college? We want them to be ready for life after college. Same is true for people who are currently incarcerated students, right? Help us be ready for life after college. And so by engaging in this community building aspect and development of voice in a collaborative way, that the professors who made the biggest impact on me in my undergraduate career were those who made that shift away from the read, recite, regurgitate type banking model of education and moved into creating spaces of co-learning and development, of challenging the material and growing together. And that really is the big piece, is that people are able to become thought partners, learn to challenge each other intellectually with the mutual goal of learning together. When I think about where I want to work with people who will challenge me, right? In a way that invites me into my growth. And that's something that is so unique about cultivating community in the classroom space, is that we learn to hear and engage with and honor each other's voice. And what also happens is the establishment and honoring of boundaries. We become experts in that. When you actually challenge each other in these ways, you learn to establish healthy boundaries and honor other people's boundaries as they set them. And so there are two specific examples that I want to name. If you've been here for the last couple of weeks, then you've heard about the Freedom and Captivity Project and Kobe Across the Walls. And what makes these so unique is that they're grounded in abolitionist pedagogy. Emancipatory education leads to collective liberation. And we do this through building community connection and understanding, right? How do we learn most readily? It's when we feel safe enough to share our ideas before they're fully formed, and to feel empowered to challenge the material itself. And so in both of these spaces, this is what we do. And in both, we engage as equals, right? With Freedom and Captivity and Kobe Across the Walls, inside and outside students are coming together, not as people from the outside coming in to benefit the lives of the people on the inside, but they're mutually transformative. And with Freedom and Captivity, we take it a step further, where there are co-facilitators. Facilitators working on the inside and the outside, teaching these materials as subject matter experts, and people on the inside largely with experiential experts, right? With the expertise that comes with the lived experience within these systems. And so what I would love to see is administrators of prisons and DOCs, higher education and prison practitioners, look at these models. They exist, right? This has been done, and see the opportunities for professional application of the education as paid facilitators, right? Because there is the non-monetary benefit of growing in community and development of voice and empowerment and all that. And then there is that step further of being able to be colleagues, which is massive. And these are transformative examples of what can be adapted and replicated, scaled, and applied widely throughout the carceral institutions. And so I'd like to encourage everybody here to start thinking now. What can you do from where you are with what you have to possibly start creating a co-learning environment like what I just described? What can you do to start or support the building of this bridge from education to professionalization, from learning the things to actually being able to do them?
Amazing. Thank you, Leo, and thank you, Victoria. So what I'm hearing is that you'd both like to see some meaningful expansion, support, and connection in developing the future of higher education and prison as a means to developing pathways for education and action. For the next question, Leo, I'd like you to start. And I'd like to ask you, what kind of opportunities should be made available on the inside to higher education and prison students and potential future students? And what are a couple specific steps that can be taken in order to make that happen?
So we don't have enough time for me to get into everything I've been able to do as a professional throughout my master's program, but I'll get to a number of those in a little bit, or later. For now, suffice it to say that I've been able to directly apply my education professionally in multiple ways, but that have been guided by my passion, guided by my speed of development, and guided by my personal capacity. And so students need to be supported in doing this. Victoria mentioned a little bit earlier about allowing our passion to guide what we're doing, right? Ved mentioned it about the importance of internships, that is their purpose, is to help us see who we want to be, help us develop that professional identity. And that can't be overstated, the power of developing professional identity. And so what can happen, and what I would love to see, is prison and DOC administrators across the country do like what we've been doing here in Maine and support this type of exploration that enables this development of professional identity. And higher education and prison leadership, if anybody in this room right now who is part of this work, this is something that you can do as well. And so sitting down with incarcerated students, hearing from them what they envision for their professional future. And it looks like talking through the policy logistics of what is possible, what is feasible, and what is not possible at this time. This support, this visioning, it looks like transparency and straightforward dialogue. If you notice, I mentioned what isn't possible yet. Deal as professionals with aspiring professionals. There's no need to talk down or do any of that of, feeling like you need to couch or sugarcoat the reality of what you're dealing with, but just be real about it, because this translates directly into a professional ability to be able to operate in these ways. And so translating education into professional application is absolutely necessary, because who isn't coming back to prison once we're finally out? These two. Not happening, right? And so who also isn't likely to come back? People who have received the support and the guidance and the opportunity to do this work, to engage in education and action while currently incarcerated before their release. When you do, like Victoria mentioned, and start from the beginning of someone's incarceration and look forward into their future beyond this, from the beginning, that inspires hope. It helps create a path. And so I've been blessed enough to work as a visiting instructor at Colby College, prestigious liberal arts college, and be able to work with students, to be able to guide them and be part of their development along the way. The direct translation of my advanced degree into action professionally, working as a professional with other professionals and developing this colleagueship. And so what I would love to see, I'd love to see a lot, but higher education and prison programs are perfectly positioned to replicate these models that we're talking about, right? This model that has been pioneered between Colby College and Maine Department of Corrections of an inside professor working for a college, fully employed, and changing lives for the good, especially for those of us who have caused so much harm in this world. This has been the first time that I've actually felt like I'm contributing to my community on the outside. And the pay that comes with it is what has enabled me to support my family. And for the first time in my adult life, because I was incarcerated at 18 years old, first time in my adult life, I'm a taxpayer. Currently incarcerated, caring for my family, providing for my loved ones, and paying my taxes. And so the benefits are long, and you can go back, I think it was the first week where we talked about some of the benefits. And I'd like to encourage anyone who is in a position to do this replication work and the expansion and the adaptation to read a couple of articles. I'll put them in the chat in a minute about this model that we've been developing here. You can read it in Mother Jones and in most recently the Chronicle for Higher Education, that of having an inside-outside partnership of co-professors. But bottom line, prison and DOC administrators, higher education and prison practitioners should get in touch with incarcerated students to explore their professional interests and passions. These conversations should be generative in building that professional bridge in accordance to local context, leadership, and structure. That is what's possible, and that is my hope, that is my vision moving forward. But I've talked about my advanced degree, and so much of this, right, becoming a professor requires that, but that doesn't fit everyone. So Victoria, you want to speak a little bit on what other avenues should be made possible? What can this look like outside of what I've been talking about?
I would be delighted. I love this question because there's so much room for creative innovation here. This is fertile ground for some pathways. So there are just so many options and opportunities here that are only limited by the courage, imagination, and commitment of DOCs, employers, and residents, who all need to be in partnership and collaboration to be able to bring these designs to life. You made some very incisive and important points while you were speaking, and I was just sitting in the truth of that, about how these conversations are key and important. You were talking about co-learning spaces and about conversations with administration and conversations initiated by administration to gauge interest and to figure out how to plan something that's beneficial and welcoming to incarcerated people. And I would say that even further, it's important for DOCs to engage in these conversations and co-learning environments with each other, to learn from each other's programming, to see what other facilities are doing and what works, how that's organized and structured, and how that could be adapted to fit the model of their facility. I would love to see, legal assistant and paralegal positions open up to be able to provide not only the practicum elements of a degree program for a justice studies student, but also to relieve the administrative burden that falls on a lot of public defense offices and a lot of legal professions that we're suffering right now. Copy editing, publishing, and transcription, which can all be done remotely and be done well by English majors and by business majors and anyone with an interest. Data entry, analytics, and research, graphic design and web design, and there are programming classes that are cohesive with that. These are all high demand and high wage occupations that are voids to be filled in our current culture of labor force participation, which is suffering a lot post-pandemic. So there are massive untapped pools of talent within these walls that are lacking for opportunities and outlets to be able to explore their passions and to find something that revitalizes them, gives them hope, and allows them to contribute in a very meaningful way. Beyond that, I would love to see vocational programs open up. We've had a modicum of success here in Maine with services directed towards women currently, with an actual paid union apprenticeship in construction. So women were actually paid to be able to explore and educate themselves and get their hands dirty in a field where women are highly underrepresented. And it doesn't always feel like the most inclusive space, but really breaking down that wall and barrier to show women what's possible for them, what they could be involved in, what they might actually enjoy if they have the opportunity to learn about it and to experience that. So there are some tactile elements to that. And that is something that has an industry with a level of support and structure to be able to offer union representation and membership afterwards that actually helps find you a job while you're still learning, to streamline the process of education to profession. And we could use a lot more of that. There are programs in other states, such as Arizona's call center, that has these wonderful contracts where they teach women sales skills and technological skills, digital literacy, and to be able to act as representatives and recruiters, where women leave with actual high-paying jobs that are professional and respectable and give them a new swagger in their step and a sense of purpose and confidence. And these are positions that are built for the future, that start here within these walls with education, then with the practice, then with the future. So I would love to see so much more of that. And I would love to see there be something within the corrections community that works to, as you said, Leo, challenge each other to inspire growth, to be able to offer each other an image of what's possible, and to, yes, learn from our own and each other's mistakes, but also to build on our successes and to be able to share those.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Thank you both for providing such a wonderful foundation for this visioning session. You've spoken briefly about the general pathways that can be created and the types of steps that need to be taken to get there. But I'm hoping that you can each briefly discuss the specific roles and opportunities that you've seen open up in Maine. And just a time check, we have technically 2 minutes until we're supposed to start Q&A. So we would love to hear from you each briefly.
Sure, we'll keep this short and sweet. So the lightning round. You know, for me personally, remote teaching assistant positions and speaking engagements with MIT's Educational Justice Institute and Dr. Lee Perlman, being able to get into those circles to share my thoughts and insights and apply my education conversationally has been epically uplifting. That has led to opportunity after opportunity. Being in situations with the University of Maine at Augusta's Prison Education Partnership Advisory Board really set me up for the grant writing position that I took and the success that I achieved with that. I've seen other residents do facilitator training for Maine Humanities Council and to actually receive payment and stipends as a result of their education and program planning and facilitation. And beyond that, I mean, who wouldn't want what we have going on with the Alliance? This fellowship has been the ultimate opportunity, culmination of everything that we have been working towards. And I'm hoping to see a lot of scalable expansion for that, because I think that every carceral resident who's interested in this kind of program and is willing to work for it and build that trust with the DOC deserves to shine in this light and to be able to be part of something bigger than themselves. How about you, Leo?
So the list is ridiculous for what is possible, what roles I've been able to hold just over these past couple of years. So I worked as a course assistant at a university, a course assistant or course coordinator for a truth, reconciliation, peace building, and trauma healing organization. Mentioned my work as a visiting instructor at Colby College, and I've been a guest speaker at numerous professional and college classes, trainings, and events across the US and overseas. Through this work, I have been invited to serve on the board of the advisory council of a social justice organization and the board of directors of a human rights organization, both of these who operate on a national and international stage. And so with the tech expansion throughout Maine State Prison here in particular, and also throughout the DOC, these opportunities can be opened, right? So the pathways are many. And what this does, all of these roles that I've been able to hold show just how broad and even broader the pathways for education and action can be and must be in order to allow for passion to guide their development. And so Victoria mentioned, right, we're working to build a cohort of paid interns playing matchmaker, right? The Alliance playing matchmaker between incarcerated student professionals and outside employers. And in practice, what we're working to build out right now in collaboration with administrators is making it so that everybody benefits, right? Just in a snapshot, what this looks like is that when someone secures outside employment, they give up their inside job and inside pay. So what that does is that it opens up a position, it opens up the ability for that money that I was making to go back into the pot for other people to get raises. And then with a 10-15% room and board fee put on, you can name it what you want, but that goes into the general fund, and that's where industries workers get paid. So the money that I make would be given up, go to other salary paid workers on the inside. They get a raise. Money that gets contributed to the general fund raises industries workers pay because they get paid out of separate accounts here in Maine. And so in this way, everybody benefits, in addition to everybody in my family who I'm connected to, for me to be able to support, as well as the economy as a whole, where I'm paying taxes. And so everybody wins, and that's what's possible. And our call to action today for this visioning, let's do this together. I know we've been talking and I'm 2 minutes over that 20-minute mark, but what can you do from where you are with what you have to support this bridge building to apply education and professional action? Let's figure it out.
Thank you both so much. You have provided so much for us to think about in envisioning what education and action can look like, and how we all can contribute to this movement. We do have 17 minutes for a Q&A session. So if you would please drop your questions in the chat, feel free to raise your hand. You can speak your question. And while we're awaiting for folks to think about what they'd like to hear about from the fellows, I would like to pose a question to our executive director, Ved Price. We have heard from the fellows the importance of building relationships, of collaboration between departments of correction, between higher education and prison programs, between and the importance of that trust building. And as many of you know, the Alliance is known as a convener of the higher education and prison field. We are hosting our annual conference this November in Atlanta, Georgia. It's going to be amazing. And we also publish the Journal of Higher Education and Prison. And so I'm hoping that Ved can speak a bit about other types of convenings that the Alliance is looking to engage in order to really build out this education and action initiative.
Thanks, Susie. I'll be brief because I am looking forward to having some open discussion and hearing people's thoughts and feedback. As Pell reinstatement is right around the corner. We're really looking at how to maximize the impact of education and finding new and innovative ways. It's not just like a movement anymore. There's legitimate, not that it hasn't always been legitimate, but you have federal government backing this and putting dollars into this. And so, people can take this stuff more serious outside of just the advocacy space of what this could look like. So we're really doing what we can to build in the supports to ensure that this Pell reinstatement is done right. and it's sustained. And so, everything from technical assistance and convening people who are providing technical assistance all the way to trying to gather co-learning spaces and communities, whether that's corrections, wardens, commissioners, and things like this, to talk amongst each other. Because I think a lot of times practitioners and program directors are always pushing corrections for, a little bit more privileges, a little bit more of this, or a little bit more resources. And so they're used to hearing it from the directors, the practitioner side, but having them in the spaces with each other and letting these commissioners and wardens talk amongst each other and is where mountains move. And I see Dr. Lee Perlman in here from MIT, who also worked with the New England Board of Higher Ed in creating a regional consortium where commissioners voluntarily showed up for 9 months to talk about this work. They just put out a report a couple weeks ago, and I've had some really good communication with them. And so this regional consortium building of co-learning spaces with the correctional leaders, where they can talk in spaces and build off of what each other are doing, is where the work happens, because they expect us, the advocates, I guess, to ask for certain things, but having these models from other correctional agencies really helps. So just wanted to shout you out, Lee, for the work that you all have done and bringing correctional leaders together in spaces voluntarily, right? No one's forcing them to be there. So yeah, I look forward to the open discussion, answering questions. I mean, everybody's here for a reason in this call. I'm sure, whether, hopefully everybody believes that this is possible. I think this is the magnitude of this sort of movement. It's a lot bigger than, I wake up every day surprised at the fact that what we're trying to do, so yeah, pause there. Hopefully people have questions, thoughts, ideas, feedback.
Yeah, what do you want to see? What do you want to do? What can you do? This is open floor.
Yeah, or also what are the obstacles? What are things that you anticipate being a barrier? What are some of the things that you're might be afraid of, or something like this? So
I see Kimberly's hand is up.
Do you mind if it was so much easier just to speak than to write all this? Okay. Okay, as someone who's been an advocate for a few years and trying to behave, through the walls, and to, I have someone on death row on my board, and I try to function independently because I run up against obstacles. And Maine sounds fabulous, but there are the facilities that I work with, people can't afford to even have a phone conversation, much less a Zoom meeting. Or my governor just took away the right to vote. So against so much, where do you go first? Who do you approach first? I'm happy to reach out. What could just the typical person with the experience of doing this and wanting to help go to first?
So if you're talking about you said Virginia? So Virginia Department of Corrections is, I think, still the only dialogic organization in the US registered through the Academy of Professional Dialogue. Harold Clark is the director down there, and he has a leadership team who is doing some good work on the inside. I put him out there all the time because Rick White, I forget the name of the facility that he is in, that he leads, but he's a warden down in Virginia who is a man of his word. He came through, worked with Harold, and Dave Robinson is also in leadership down there, who opened the door for Zoom participation by currently incarcerated people at last year's Academy of Professional Dialogue, their annual conference called The World Needs Dialogue. And so, and they have the willingness, and they're starting to train to open up their dialogue training. They're opening it up for currently incarcerated residents. And so I would reach out directly to either Harold Clark or Dave Robinson at their central office and be like, hey, this is what I want to do. How can we work together? They will probably put you in touch with the head of education. Like we have Laura Rodas up here for the head of education and training, but Virginia also has, I forget that person's name, been in contact at some point or another. But you would go straight to leadership, make the offer, and hopefully make a connection with the head of a facility as well to start piloting the project that you want to lead.
Thank you.
Thank you. I saw Jermaine Green's hand up. Jermaine, did you want to pop in? And then Iria, you'll be next.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks so much. Yeah, so I joined the last call for the first time. Really, really great group here. So I served 12 and a half years. August of this month makes 10 years since my release. While incarcerated, I developed databases for the prison system. And so when I was released, I couldn't get a job doing like regular stuff, you know, because of my record. So what I did is I put the database work on a resume and said I work for the Department of Corrections. And so that helped me get into tech. And so today I'm a cybersecurity auditor, right? So I audit the biggest power companies in the country. You know, it's very purposeful work. And so everything that you all are saying here, this is the result, right? So when it comes to getting internet access at, you know, correctional institutions for residents, I know that that can sometimes be a serious challenge. It should be known that every single platform allows for granular access. For example, one could have access to a chess platform to play chess. The chat function can be disabled, right? You know, certain ports can be opened or closed by your IT group. And so, you know, like I know that getting approvals and all sorts of things are, you know, is really, really tough. But simply knowing that, you know, and going in, you know, like as you figure up your program that is going to, you know, need internet access, is going to be absolutely essential. You know, I believe that that is going to be a strong point to make. You know, and so it's simply a matter of, you know, awareness, right? You know, I mean, that I'm just looking to introduce. So, yep, keep it up, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jermaine. And I would love to continue a conversation with you about this because I think you have a really valuable insight and expertise. Iria.
Yeah, hello, everyone. Susie, you pronounce my name really good. My name is Iria. And for the people that are wondering how to start, I have always wanted to get involved in you know, helping others. And the way that I started, it was like 8 years ago. I was driving incarcerated people that work at the work release center here in Omaha. I was driving them to school and back to the correctional center. I was driving them to work and back to the correctional center. A lot of time I buy candies and soda for them so they can have something. I make great connection with the inmates. I really, really enjoy that job. I mean, it was a volunteering thing. Later on, we had a new reentry program here at Omaha, and I was actively working with the reentry. Unfortunately, I couldn't continue with that job, but now things that I'm currently doing with my ex-husband being incarcerated. You know, one of the things that you hear a lot is why you're still talking to him after what he did. And it's not just that. He was my husband for 20 years. So he's going to be part of my family forever, even if I don't want to. We have a daughter together. So I have been, I mean, it's a lot to process. So you need to be very, very strong in your mind, knowing that you're not just helping your ex-husband, you're helping a human being. You're helping somebody that eventually is going to get out. And if that's the only thing that I can do right now is helping this one person to get better, to find resources, to find a job when he gets out, then just do it. You're doing it for you, you're doing it for your kids, but you're also doing it for the community. And when people criticize me for that, I goes like, I want your kids to be safe. I want you to be safe. And the only way that I can do that is helping him. If I can help somebody else along the way, I will do it too. It is painful. It's a long process again, but that's how I started. And I really I enjoy talking to the inmates when I was there. They always have interesting conversations. But just like that, it's just walking in and ask, how can I volunteer? What do you need? You know, what is accessible? Yeah, that's it.
You.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that, Yuria. And I'm so glad that I pronounced your name. It's beautiful. I do want to acknowledge we have about 4 minutes left. Elizabeth Monteiro has commented in the Q&A. Elizabeth, do you want to come off mute and share?
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Sorry everyone for the interruption. I had to urgent matter to take care of, and I'm definitely happy and grateful to be here and to join this conversation, especially someone, as I said in the comment, as a Cape Verdean woman of color, as a mother, as someone who has a Corey, who been locked up, who experienced what it feels like to have that bar closed behind you, whether it's for a day, a minute, a year, 2, 3, 5, 10 years. So I can definitely empathize and have the compassion to understand and to want to engage in the discussion and how we can be able to help the men and women who's incarcerated, and to understand that everyone deserves that grace and mercy and opportunity to grow, so we're not defined by our past, by our Corey, by our histories, whether it's I'm a domestic violence survivor and a founder of a nonprofit that I recently formed to be able to coordinate prevention, intervention, advocacy for women in families that are fleeing and experiencing intimate partner violence. And it's also important to recognize the need for batterers interventions to be able to help understand the root cause, what got us in prison, what helped us to stay out of prison, what helped me that I did not go back after certain times, in and out, in and out. And it's important to be able to bring people, not just with the expert background, the academic training, the academic uh, criteria that many brings, which is important, but it's also very important to have people at the table to make room for people with lived experience, especially people from my community of color, from the Black and Brown community, underserved community, to be able to come and share. This is what helped us. This is what hindered us. This is what kept me out of jail. This is what helped me not to go back to the abuser. This is what helped to break the vicious cycle of abuse, of trauma, of violence in our own community. So it's important to be able to include, when we talk about inclusion, to be able to include not just the professionals, but people that represents our community, people that's walked through that walked that path, that lived in those houses, that walked in the shoes of someone that's been incarcerated, like the folks that you have on here, like the women, like the men, especially us as women of colors, as mother, whether as the woman just spoke about her husband, her experience with her husband, my experience as a domestic violence survivor and a founder of my nonprofit, our experience as, trying to come up from the streets and to try to get to rebuild and to build on our resiliency, on our experience, lived experience, on our faith, and to connect people also with the faith-based organization to try to inspire people that your past, whether you've been locked up, whether it's substance abuse problem, whether no matter what it is, that you can overcome, you can transition, you can be empowered, you can develop, you can learn to live a new life and to see yourself not the way that society sees you, that it's over and done with, they can't change, that they're always going to go back to what they know. So it's important to have to include people in the conversation and to be able to see how can we help them to come out and to be able to open up our arms and open up our homes and open up our programs and our resources to include those that have been forgotten or that have been cast away by societies and by the powers that be in societies.
Absolutely. Yes to all of this, Elizabeth. And I do want to note that the Alliance does support creating quality educational programs that serve people who maybe do not come from a background as privileged with an existing educational background, in terms of education preparedness, and other types of programs that set people on the pathway for degree seeking or professional certificate seeking programs. And so, yes, we value lived expertise from the people who are most dramatically impacted by the carceral system. And I just thank you for sharing your experience and your expertise.
Thank you.
We are at time. I want to thank everyone for coming today, for helping us wrap up this 3-part series on education and action. Thank you to Ved Price for introducing the series or the event today. And thank you, of course, to our wonderful Alliance Fellows, Leo Hilton and Victoria Scott, for sharing just amazing experience, strength, and hope for envisioning what education and action can look like in the future. And this recording will be posted on our YouTube channel if you'd like to go back and watch it.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kimberly,